evening. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
I see there. We'll try to unmute. Let's see. Namsa. Okay. So welcome everybody to the Wisdom reading session. This evening we're having a recap of the book we've been reading, Civilization and Transcendence, some takeaways, and we have with us Bhakti Nomusa, and we have Kolofelo. So we've got Mondays and Tuesday and Saturday. And everyone else, I December, either internet ayisebenzi or they're super involved with families somewhere. And if one of the other readers shows up, we'll be very grateful. So welcome, dear devotees, Ninja.
Siyaphila wena njani?
Saphila, Prabhu. Singabuza kuwena.
I know Spili Lesonke, and I think so. We'll go by the days, and we know what's the first day of the week.
Sunday.
We're trying to just. I mean, I've been enjoying listening to all of you speak, right? And just this book, I found it so nice because it's got just Njama questions that are very meaningful. That are, I would say, anyone who's a thinker who would get a chance to interact and try to understand Bhakti would ask. And what better person to be asked these questions than Srila Prabhupada himself, you know? Mm-hmm. So I really enjoyed the depth of the questions.
Completely. I agree.
I agree.
There's nothing else I agree.
Yeah. Pusta Krishna is he actually put the head of a person that is inquiring about Krishna consciousness, what a person that inquires would, the kind of questions that they would ask. And obviously from that innocence, the answers were also, broad and very informative and descriptive of what the questions were all about. And yeah, on both sides.
He came to South Africa. He's one of the devotees who were early pioneers in South Africa. In fact, the first devotee was he was 18 at the time, Shudi Prabhu. And because he had looked and he saw Africa, and he said to Prabhupada he'd like to go to the southern tip to preach. Prabhupada was, okay, good. I will arrange someone to go with you. And he organized a sannyasi. And at that time, Pusta Krishna was Pusta Krishna Swami. And he engaged that sannyasi to help this 18-year-old to come, to preach here. So the book is set up such that the questions are for a journal in Mumbai. And so we have the book. Anyone who would like to get a copy, be in touch with us. We can give you the. In fact, I would say, in the spirit of honoring what Prabhupada has done, that today, anyone who will be watching who asks a question or shares a comment gets a copy of Civilization and Transcendence. So
does that include us?
Never keep anything.
Wow, you are so kind.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
Oh, there's Atma Tatra.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Benvenuto, welcome. Haribol.
Haribol, everyone.
Hare Krishna.
Okay, so Kalage, maybe I'll go because I read chapter 2. I'll just share something from chapter 2 that I read just to set the tone. In chapter 2, the chapter was beyond progressing beyond progress. Papa is making a very amazing point. Uguti society today, we pride ourselves, Uguti, we've made advancement and we've progressed. And then Prabhupada says, well, there's two standards according to the Vedic wisdom of progress. One standard, ilesi of animals, ahara, nidra, baya, and maituna. That is eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. So Uti Prabhupada, the dog, he's running on 4 legs, and the human being is running on 4 wheels. And he thinks that this is great progress. So Uti, no, this is not progress. He says the real standard of progress is such that the human being has a better energy than that of an animal, meaning better consciousness. And so real advancement then would be in the area of self-realization. And we are coming with self-realization then means how much have you improved your relationship with God? How much have you developed your love for God? So I really like that it challenges the whole notion that our whole society is premised on, that we are making advancement and rapid advancement at that, when we are just simply advancing on the animalistic tendencies of eating, sleeping, and mating. And he puts that there's the spiritual side, and that's where we have to make advancement. I thought that was really powerful.
Mm-hmm.
He has many examples like that. Would you even say in the area of eating? How much can you eat? Even if you have $20 billion in your account, your stomach doesn't allow you to eat $20 billion worth food. You still have to eat 2 chapatis. Yes. Any other points from anyone from their reading?
Okay. I think I'll start then. From my reading, I think the chapter that stood out was chapter 8 for me, where Pushta Krishna sort of like puts a question to His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada, about fasting, and other dietary regulations, when His Divine Grace started answering, he elaborates on tapasya, which is austerities, and he first touches on the austerities that are like the cornerstones or the pillars of brahmachari life, which is the 4 regulated principles, no illicit sex, no intoxication, no gambling, no meat eating. And then he sort of like goes down, it goes downhill, if I may put it that way. He like opens it up, this whole tapasya thing like now becomes this massive topic, where he even goes into grihasta life and talks about sex and talks about how you use your mouth, how all of these actions or capabilities that we have that can be used as the person, he like categorizes them, and then he comes to sex life, in the grihasta, like married life, to say that sex in married life is also tapasya, and that was like like it really caught me, knowing the culture that I come from, and how how after married life, how sex is something that is a topic that brings more like family together, type of thing. It's there's always like reasons, or how can I put it, excuses that people make to make sex a healthy life of a relationship, and it actually fixes the problems to a certain extent, you know. And for me, when His Divine Grace actually, mentioned it to be Tapasya, kind of sort of like rang quite a lot of bells in terms of, you know, um, I would like to know how, it becomes Tapasya in a situation like that. And, why is it that, other people think of it as a something that can fix a problem, a relationship problem, as
Yeah, you
opposed
get that
to
advice, right? You have to
yes,
keep the
yeah,
fires burning.
keep the fires burning, and yeah, those are the kind of conversations that you would have around the whole sex, after marriage, conversation. Um, so for me, when His Divine Grace like broke it down, it sort of like rang quite a lot of bells. And obviously it also asked me, the effect of you misusing it after married life. What are the possible uh, 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 how can I put it, disadvantages that you would
Mm.
probably have to suffer for lack of knowledge, that sex is actually tapasya in a married life, you know. Um,
Mm.
and yeah, those
Very
are the
big
kind of,
topic.
yeah, it's a big topic. It's a
Very big
huge
topic,
topic,
and
and
very relevant.
yeah,
Very relevant. And I think PowerPoint, yeah, brings forward again, these two. I think it links to the point I was making earlier. What brought up um, with the two objectives, of life. One being sort of sense gratification, material, and the other being spiritual development, self-realization. And so ngapha vele kwa-sense gratification, which is called pravritti, the part of enjoying the body. The best the body has to offer in terms of enjoyment is sex pleasure. And married life is a challenge, difficulty. There's a lot of obstacles, well, challenges, children, making money, living with another person, being in a society. And so the payoff is just one of the things that, people can take shelter of just to lift their spirits, to also, solidify that bond between, the couple, is to share in this enjoyment of sex. Uh, but what it does is that it just binds the person on that bodily concept of life, because you're really taking shelter of the body and just that pleasure based on the body. And it reinforces that sort of unhealthy dependence on a source of happiness, which is a physical. Of course, because all of that drama, all that difficulty is going on, this helps people to sort of provide each other that facility. But Prabhupada's point is that because we are the soul, we should be seeking a higher type of pleasure, a spiritual type of pleasure. And in that way, we have to regulate the best that we've got in material pleasure. It shouldn't be a go-to, because you become an addict. And in fact, it's got diminishing returns, sex life. After some time, you have to go look for it elsewhere. People, they don't keep it with the same person for long. So the point is that if we don't go higher and seek happiness of the soul, from devotion, then sex life binds us to mature consciousness. But that same sex life, if it is engaged in according to the directions of Krishna, and one of them is that it has to bring God conscious children. So then it's an austerity to control the senses and to not indulge them like that. And then it's an austerity also to accept the result of religious sex life, which means children. So now we have to raise them in God consciousness and train them. Yeah, it's having a full fridge and not just always going to the fridge to eat. It's an austerity. But the whole thing is just so that we're sober enough. Because here's one example is that, raising your hands, shouting out to the Lord. It's one type of surrender and pleasure. But when one is surrendering to sex, they just go, it's two different things. Yeah. And so it has to be managed. It has to be managed. And I think in that chapter, what did Prabhupada say? Remember, you were like, no. How many times he said we should have sex?
He says, no, I'll tell you now. Wait, I'll tell you, I'm on that chapter now. Illicit sex, so those who are accustomed to bad habits, but in spite of today, there is early no one in the painful. He says, even in Grihastha life, sex is some form of a tapasya, because you cannot just have sex like as you please. You have to do it to beget children, and that is the
but we've made advancement now.
One may marry there. This means he enters Grihastha life, household life. That is also tapasya. He cannot have sex whenever he feels like. No. The Shastra says, you must have sex like this, once in a month, and only for begetting children.
No!
So tapasya. There you go. Word for word. Yeah.
Yes. For begetting children, that also goes against our advancement. We've made advancements so that it's not just only for children. So this sounds like we're going back. I mean, in the 60s, they got the pill so that we can avoid this stupidity of religion telling us only for children.
True.
So what do you say?
This is, now I actually understand, it's an action that ties you, that binds you even further.
I wish at this point I had a clip, an audio clip of when Prabhupada was speaking at the Rath Yatra, thinking, in the US, and some hippie was like, I want sex.
Just like that.
Yeah, and Prabhupada addressed it very nicely.
You have it? You want to play it?
I'm going to look for it.
Oh, you're going to look for it.
Yeah, just to hear the sound of it to actually.
I mean, it is one. It's a point that, but if you consider the type of people that we are in the age of Kali, it's definitely not going to be your leading point in trying to attract people to Krishna consciousness.
Yeah.
This point actually is for those who are trying to become serious.
Yeah,
they can try to understand that, especially in household life. That it can sink the thing, but at the same time, it really has to be discussed in a good space with some experienced devotees how to deal with the needs of the people in that marriage, alongside the process of Krishna consciousness, because we have experience of cases where one partner, yes, I see this is true, this thing has to be regulated. This cannot just be like cats and dogs, and they stop the flow. And then the other loses heart and feels let down, and then there's a split. So although the injunctions are there to give us the ideal where we are more and more freed from this chain of depending on sex pleasure, it still has to be taken up with all care and caution and communication.
Does it have a biological impact, this tapasya?
This one specifically?
Yeah, I'd say this one specifically because I think there are quite a lot of beliefs, around.
When you say biological, explain.
If a person has less sex, are they better off biologically, or are they worse off biologically? Well, spiritually, you've just elaborated.
Please share your wisdom with us.
Mike.
Now, there's like a lot of things that have been said, even by people who aren't necessarily practicing any spiritual. Well, they are spiritual practitioners, but for the sake of another practice, for example, Muhammad Ali, boxing. His instructor or trainer or coach would encourage him to remain celibate for a good amount of time. There are many cases like that. Yeah, it's also explained that when one retains semen, it travels up the spinal cord into the brain, becomes brain matter, all of that. So the benefits are there. But again, at the risk of misquoting, but Devamrita Maharaj also explains that this age that we're in is like Kali Yuga on steroids. I mean, the time that we're in Kali Yuga, in comparison to their time in the 60s, where yes, everybody was somewhat sex crazed, drug crazed. It was sex, drugs, and rock and roll. In fact, it came from flower power, love, peace, and happiness, and then it took a hard turn and became sex, drugs, and rock and roll and some intense violence. But yeah, now it's worse. I mean, if you remember the 90s, I was just remembering when you're speaking, I was just recalling how high school was something, man. Hype William videos, what these want from, and it was everywhere. The 90s was like the sexual revolution. So you can imagine now the saturation in terms of this hype around sex indulgence. Plus, it's been attached to anything from selling windscreen wipers to earbuds. It's crazy. It's just crazy. So, yeah, I mean, like even now, I mean that's the engine, that's the fuel for most social media content.
Yeah.
So I mean, even now, I mean, what do you think the gender debate is centered around? Sex life. You see.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's not important. It's not important. I was just thinking actually when I was just taking a shower. What is a lot of people were talking about our ancestors, our this and that. I'm thinking, what is the work that we owe our ancestors? Is it healthy progeny? Is it using ancient herbs, fancy word jugglery, philosophy? What is it? Like how you're saying traditionally, had politiki ke one politiki, if you get what I mean, but not to be crass, but exactly that. And I'm thinking the work that you owe your ancestors is actually spiritual work. I mean, other than that, what is it? I don't
What
know.
can you
What
give
do you
them?
think? What can you give them? You owe them spiritual work. So I'm going to go
And
back
the
to
family
searching for that
unit.
clip in the family unit. Yeah. So I'm going back to my searching for that clip. So
Okay.
don't toss me in the deep end again.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Interesting.
Almost, I have any thoughts on this one?
On this particular one, no, I'm listening. No thoughts at all. Just ready to hear.
Okay. So yes, family life it's an important aspect of the whole social structure. The majority of human beings have to go through that in a proper way so that they get purified. Therefore, Prabhupada is saying Grihastha life in itself is tapasya, to take on that duty of being in a family setup. And then within that tapasya of being in a family, then also it's another austerity to keep sex, say, in check, managed, so that one doesn't get swept away by that. Yeah, so that was a very nice chapter like that. Huh? The tongue also was mentioned.
Yeah, the
You
tongue.
have to control that.
Yes. How you need to control that too. Yeah, as part of the passion.
Speech and eating. It's also very
Yes.
difficult to control.
To control. Yeah.
Definitely, especially
So,
with speech, very difficult to control. And there's a lot to be said and a lot of platforms in which one can say what they want to say. I know it's just this week, the political event that happened, the passing of someone. I've been wanting to say something, but I know it's counter so much that the world has to say about this particular individual, and I'm left biting my tongue and thinking, maybe there's some wisdom in biting my tongue, because what I want to say, I might get backlash. But even then, I don't care. But I think in the don't care, what someone would respond is exactly just keep quiet then, because if you're not willing to engage and your point is your point, then keep it as your point for yourself. So we live in an age also, millennials, where it's like, oh, that's my point. I don't care what anyone has to say. We just like, whatever. We just that our whatever generation. We don't care how something lands on other people. What we say will affect someone else, and yeah, we just move in that way, and it's gonna have very very negative impact in the future. This very careless use of speech.
in fact, a very important point that Krishna touches on in the Bhagavad Gita. As a tapasya, there's austerity of speech. And austerity of speech says it means to cite the authoritative scriptures to back up the things that we say. And part of it is to speech that will not agitate others.
Yes.
Interesting. Truth has to be spoken palatably, but it has to be spoken. And interesting enough, Noms, I also I was speaking to Narottam Prabhu, and he was like, I'm waiting for a video, you have to say something, after this gentleman has, a very important person is moment to do. And I had my thoughts, and then I was just looking at the general sentiment of people around their commentary. And I just didn't find a place for that type of truth and angle I was thinking to speak. And I thought, okay, let me just also just hold my speech. Maybe I can, use that speaking power to channel Krishna or something else. So sort of being responsible for what we say, when we say, and how whom it will uplift or sort of take down.
It's
But
very
would you
interesting
care to
because
give a tiny, as they say case?
There's no rainbow nation in South Africa, and there never was. And I think as a religious leader, one has to be very honest when they've made a mistake or when they've taken a left turn. I think it's part of being reflective. And I do believe that there would have been a lot more conversation around taking accountability for the fact that someone went through a process of justice and they chose a particular type of justice, which is like transformative. I think he said it was transformative justice or collaborative or retributive. I don't know what that justice that they wanted from that TLC process was. It didn't work. And now we have separate branches of people going to seek legal counsel and trying to pursue cases legally using their own money, and mostly just to find where their people were buried or where they were killed, what had happened to them. It's not his fault that these people were killed, but he did pioneer this thing of trying to get justice, and it didn't work. And I think as a religious leader, it was very important for him to say, this didn't work. Apparently in his private quarters, he did say this. I've been reading on people who were very close to him who say, they said it didn't, he admitted that it didn't work, but he didn't come out to the public and say, this didn't work. And so, therefore, let's do this. I mean, he was able to speak up about so many things that pertain to religion, so many things that pertain to people being oppressed in many different countries. Israel, Palestine, Rwanda, so many. The list is endless. Gender, queer lives, pushing for queer marriage. But the main thing that the country was pushing for was this justice, this dignity that just never came. And there's just something, we read something about eternal truths. That's something I wanted to touch on, the eternal truths and versus everyday reality. I think it was going to be he was going to be very unpopular if he had done that. And Prabhupada says that to push the Krishna, that sometimes when you tell the truth, it's the truth, like it doesn't change. And he like pushes Prabhupada, like, but what about this? What about this time? Can't we change? And it's like, no, place, time, and circumstance. And I think even here, even though he might have been unpopular with the West or unpopular with the white people, the truth would have still remained the truth. And that would have been more honorable and more noble than just an everyday reality of a reality that is not real, this rainbow nation. I think if he had gone back to the scripture and looked at the scripture and said, you know what, the truth is the truth. I'm going to just speak the truth now and say this process didn't help. People suffered, and the Bible says this about suffering, and the Bible says this about justice. Therefore, this is what we're going to do forward, or I remove myself from this process until we find justice. I think, what Prabhupada has mentioned here and what we can take away is that the truth is bitter sometimes. And like you're saying, Prabhupada said, we need to present it in a palatable way. That palatability may not be, like our palates are very different. Even the most sweetest way in which Prabhupada is presenting something, he still questions. They're like still struggling him, like, no way, no. What about today's day? It's like, how dare you? Like, if you're so shock horror for something that is still the truth. But Prabhupada is still saying the truth is the truth. And I wish we had that. Like, but we bite our tongues and just hope that someone brave enough can come up and say, at some stage, we need to speak the truth, no matter how.
And I mean, Norms, I really like resonate with that because the idea of truth has to be backed up by you could say the emblem of truth, the absolute truth, the source of all realities, who determines what is true, from where do we see the standards that apply throughout, and that has to be the source of Everything has to be that. It has to be God, and we are avoiding digging into the scriptures of the world or any cultures that are presenting God's point of view to look for our answers. We tend to just want to figure it out at the relative position that we are, and we find so many leaders, in all sort of spheres, trying to give what they think, and we lose out on the bigger picture when we don't consult God. So this idea of truth, I think 2022, we have to really take heart to want to stand behind the words of God, because they actually cut through all the BS, excuse my French, and they are very helpful, even though they may not be received with enthusiasm. Because what criminal wants to be reminded of his crimes, or what criminal wants to stand before a judge and account for his crimes? And so it's expected that we on this planet will not really want to hear the truth, especially that is um, coming from God. And I think we have a duty to be custodians of this nice message of truth.
Absolutely. And in every quarter, no matter how unpopular you are, it's important to tell the truth. I think that's the last leg that
Limb,
the
right?
bull is, yeah, the last limb that the bull is standing on. Yes, let's hold on to that as well, because there's nothing else at the end of the day. We're just working on hearsay, speculation, trying to tiptoe around people's feelings. The truth is very important.
True. So yeah, in the chapters that you read, right, there was eternal truth versus everyday realities.
Yeah.
It's a nice one. Fredo,
Yebo baba.
uthini? About iqiniso.
Yeah, so for us it's overwhelming, because of the culture that we grew up in, that we have realized to be the truth up until we came across Krishna consciousness and what actually makes up Krishna consciousness and what makes up a devotee, how a devotee is being described in relation to the culture and the the Christian culture that is made up to actually, support Africanism, because this Christian culture is like quite broad. You know, there are people, there are churches that see Africanism as part of, the Christian culture and incorporate it into whatever that the offering is in terms of Christianity. So finding out the truth, I mean, Krishna consciousness is like blatant. It's like straight, and there is no maybe. you know Everything is being put the way that it is, and the source has given it that way, and the person that is delivering it will never, distort the truth. You know, we come from a culture where the truth has been made to accommodate our current situation or whatever situation that we are in, and yeah, coming up with the real truth is it's gonna be overwhelming in a way, because we are used to the truth as something that accommodates our current situation or whatever situation that we are coming from. So yeah, I think it is going to have that kind of an effect. Um,
I'd like to share something.
Yeah.
Just, I don't know how it comes off as we stand there. Just around the issue of truth and sort of a universal. I'm trying to just get the thing in focus, so it's a little This chapter 16 there, talks about fearlessness, purification of one's existence, cultivation of spiritual knowledge, charity, self-control, performance of sacrifice, study of the Vedas, austerity, simplicity, non-violence, truthfulness, like principles of, like people want to feel that religion is a problem, but then, in Krishna consciousness, this is presented as principles, and these are universal. That can help us to sort of escape the being boxed into, this is Christianity, this is Islam, this is African, this is Vedic. In that, gentleness, modesty, steady determination, forgiveness, cleanliness, these are not a monopoly of any particular religion, but these are just godly qualities. And, when we bring items like no gambling, no intoxication, no illicit sex, that if they are seen in terms of how they impact consciousness, if it's good for you, it's good for your neighbor, then it's good for the world. It's not that it's good for being a Christian, and then therefore it ends only for Christians if someone is free from anger, then it only benefits them as a Hindu or as a Jew. No, it is a quality of virtue of human beings, and as such, really challenge people to come out of looking at each other based on the designation, but let's really deal with the message. What is the message? What are we being called to rise up to? So and it's demonic to be full of pride and arrogance and conceit and anger, and to be harsh and to be ignorant. This is not just a religious belief of one group. These are universal truths. And in these ways, I feel as we get into the year, if we bring forward these principles and try to show that they cut across cultural, economic, whatever designations, then we can actually be leaning on truth, and we can push based on principles. We're not just pushing my religion. You know what I mean? Yeah.
This is true. I think it's also very true of the chapter we read yesterday. I don't know how to say the word. The proselytizing of religion. Like yes, that's the one. We're trying to convert They're trying to convert people from one religion to another religion, but understanding that with all the religions, there's a strand of principle, like you say. There's a strand even of spirituality from different parts of the world, ancient spirituality, what they call indigenous spirituality. These principles are there, and they all carry through one message. And I think that's how you see God's mercy, that in all of these religions, in all of these spiritual practices, all the indigenous people who haven't even interacted with the West or don't even know these words or can't even articulate these words like this in English or any other Western language are able to do so eloquently in their own languages and bring forth these principles and live by them and even give them names, like Ubuntu, or I don't know what they call it in other languages, Botu. I don't know what the Polynesians call it or the South Americans call it, but they have the very, very same principles. And trying to convert people into something else is very colonial, one. But it was also missing the point, because the point is, are these people really practicing these principles? You can't stamp yourself, now I'm Christian, now I'm this, without having these principles. And I think it's a principle that says, now I'm human, because when you don't have them, like you're saying, you're a demon, like we can't see you as anything other than, because these are the basic principles of having to interact with other human beings. But yeah, we are in the age of Kali, so
I agree. Really, I agree with this. Like we should own these truths that we have a demoniac nature and a divine nature, and just as we point out sexism, patriarchy, nepotism, all sorts of things that are not good for society, we should
It's
point out
divinity.
the
Yeah,
demoniac influence by
demonic.
citing the qualities of demonic mentality.
Yes.
You know,
yeah,
Mm.
yeah. We're able
Something.
to
What's this?
diagnose. So, yeah, no, go
No, go
ahead.
on, go
Sorry.
on.
I was going to say
Please.
we are able to to diagnose things. We are able to put a name on things like, oh, that's this. But
Mm,
we take our time to find where it comes from, like
mm,
literally, and also like just in the world,
mm,
metaphysically or metaphorically or spiritually, we're able to identify, oh, that's a this, oh, that's a, oh,
mm,
this is a kami, this is a, but we don't know where to go, like where it starts, like it's inside. And even you calling people that, it's like, oh, really? Okay, so how did you know? And how were you able to identify that just by
mm,
looking? Do you know their heart? Do you know? We're very quick to point out things without really finding out where they come from. We're very slow to do that. And that's the one thing that kills people. Like literally, like in the medical world, as soon as you get a diagnosis
mm,
without finding out where it comes from, what sparked it, people die because you don't know how to correct that part. And also spiritually, when we are unable to find out, oh, I've got this thing of like being greedy, and greedy in so many ways, like greed manifests itself in so many ways, and without going back to the heart and identifying, oh, actually, I'm greedy of God's position, I'm greedy of this, it's not just like a greed that is manifesting now because I want what someone else has. It's far deeper than that. Then we are
mm.
like not really moving the conversation forward because we are treating like just the symptom of something
The
far deeper.
symptom. Mm.
While
Fresh.
while you're still on that, there was a very interesting question that was posed yesterday,
Mm,
um, about spirituality and religion. You know, um, having spirituality without religion. It's a take on that.
Oh, I think it was.
I had no Musa's answer. Very nice answer.
Mm.
Yeah.
It was true also
That,
that it's a side by side thing.
mm,
The principles are there, and then the application also has to be there.
mm,
So spirituality really takes proper root when there's a philosophy,
mm,
some good understanding and explanation of why we should do certain things. Whereas in religious circles, as Noms also pointed out, there's a tendency to these are the things that we do that make who we are. But why, and what's the science behind it? What do they help us achieve in terms of getting closer to God, or it tends to be not as clear. So that's generally when it's said it's religion without philosophy is then a sentiment. There's just like a sentimentality there, which can lead to also just a fanatic belief. Whereas, when it comes to spirituality, that there must be some process that we are applying, some understanding that is we're following, some process. And then it's the you could say the strength to continue is being given because it comes from getting the result of what the process promises, and when you apply and you see some result. So it's less fanatic, but it's based on knowledge and applied and realization. So most of the time, when people also say they don't believe in religion or they don't want religion, it's good that we discuss with them, what do you consider to be religion? Because I think, as Nomsa pointed out yesterday, is that the things that have happened in the name of religion, you see. But then those it wasn't that cleanliness, austerity, truthfulness, study of scripture, modesty, these things created wars or whatever. So are you against these principles of religion which guide us to rise? Or you are against people who use institutions that are called this religion, that divided and pitted people against each other, politically motivated things? So you see people sort of throw, what's that saying? The baby with the bath water.
Mm.
So
Throw the
again,
baby out with the bathwater.
yeah, we have to, again, with that concern to want to discuss with someone. No, there are religious principles and they are great. People agree with them. Like truth. What's the basis of truth? It has to be that there's some standard of truth. And that's now a religious idea. That something is good. What's the basis of something being good? There must be some standard of goodness. So, yeah. It's, for me, I think, as we are moving on, more and more people actually want these answers that are being given in these books. They'd like to know things as they are. It's just that maybe they don't get to hear it from voices that are authorities and have platforms to actually share something. What we're getting mainly is just the fluff of trying to be enjoyers in this world. And so, and I'll task us, I think we can do, there's now that emerging science of intelligent design sciences. And they're making very beautiful arguments for God. And I think modern men, will need to hear also the bit of that language. Hey, in our book club, there's some ideas right there. There's a specific, anyone who's hearing, check out Stephen C. Meyer with Discovery Institute. He's written very nice books, Signature in the Cell, Darwin's Mistake, and
Stephen
C. Meyer. And his latest one is The Return of the God Hypothesis. Just brilliant individuals that are showing that, first it was the design argument that there must be intelligence behind the world we experience. Now to the point that the best chance we have to understand this intelligence of mind is God. Actually, that God is the most scientific answer to, the source of life and so many things. So, which shows me, that you can't run from God. Because he won't give up on us. Krishna is there. So slowly people have to be forced to deal with this. Who is God? And what's my relationship? Atma Prabhu, did you find the clip?
Yes, I did. I'm just thinking, I'm just so used to being behind the scenes that now I'm just this face that's just there, like. Yeah, it's not the exact what you call clip, but it's something to do with retaining one's potency. It's about 11 minutes long.
We are Kali Yuga people, Prabhu. I hope our attention will be.
We'll link it in the bio.
Yeah,
you can give a link in the bio, ne?
Link in the bio.
Yeah, in the comments.
I agree with that.
I have a question that I got after reading. I think it was last week's reading. What's it called? Cleansing of the Heart. And it's a question that I've asked so many times and I've gotten an answer, but I don't know why it's like it's still a hankering of mine, like a question that I just never get satisfied. Why is it that we from that what we were reading was like how Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and all the acharyas and the parampara have come for us, and we should really take up this process, and there's like the benefits of taking up this process. You can get this, you will get this. It's like an Oprah Winfrey show, like you get one, you get one, that thing. And I'm just like, but is that's what we're doing? Like we're just doing this thing as an insurance policy. Like, is the practice of any religion of Krishna consciousness an insurance policy for a future life, or is there more to what we're doing? Like, are we really taking Pascal's wager, which I think he like really disturbed me in my mind after reading about him? It really disturbed me. Or are we, or is there some genuine love from us that we haven't really tapped into, but um, the fact that the soul is intelligent and carries on this intelligence with each and every body, that we remember God and his potencies and his fullness and his wholeness, that even though we might want to take up a process of religion or spirituality as an insurance policy for the afterlife or after death, because we are terribly scared of death, that we really want something else afterwards? Or is it that it's just that we just want an insurance policy, or we are remembering something greater than ourselves from all these lives and we want to go back?
Yeah, what comes to mind is some explanations given Krishna in Bhagavad Gita, why people sometimes begin devotional service. It gives 4 categories: so inquisitive, desire of wealth, want to avoid suffering, and those who want knowledge of the absolute truth. So those people, based on the combination of motivation, they will act in that process based on those. If it is just trying to find out what's up, they hang around a little bit. Okay, I know what these people are about, or they think they do, they may leave. They want to sort their material situation. If that works out, then they may have faith in the process. Or others just afraid that if I don't follow God, I will suffer. This is Bhaktivinoda Thakur's classification. It says the lowest level is coming out of fear of God and some suffering that may come. And then higher than that, one has to come because of duty. Actually, no, it's fear, and then there's some desires. You want something that God is powerful, He can do something for me. And then higher than that, God has done so many things for me. Let me be a dutiful child. And the highest is dealing with God or entering religion or spirituality out of a desire for reciprocation in love with God. So, yes, you will find that those motivations are there. But sometimes it's just like, let me do something religious so that I don't get the full suffering that may come for not having done. So because I remember that. I remember at the uni, some weekends that were really hectic. Then Sunday morning, I just remember like, I was raised in the church. And there was an Anglican church next to the high where I stayed. I'd drag myself there just so that to counteract, like, hey, I've been going this way.
Going the opposite direction, yeah.
Even in Maftown, I'd go and I'd sit in the children's section in the Catholic thing, just nursing sense gratifications punches,
Yeah.
At least I came.
Sign register. Present.
So I mean, good corner, Logan, and sometimes like, who's gonna bury us? Someone else in the family has to stay connected to a church because we may need funeral services. And they say someone needs to get married, so we keep in touch with a certain community of religious what.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah.
So the question is, we have to see that we are moving towards, like, we're really genuinely interested in Krishna. And Krishna likes that, those who know him, his personality, who want to deal with him as this person, who are attracted to him, not to what he can give or, his powers and his opportunities. So I think Krishna consciousness is such a treasure in that way, that it gives a wealth of knowledge about the person, that we actually feel like we just like Krishna. He can say so many things that are like heavy, sex once a month or whatever, but it's like, we like him. So we're going to try to get with the program. That's what I mean.
So it's not the fact that Vrindavan is advertised as like Ziawa, as rather than any club that is here on earth. It's more that there is something that we're looking for.
Yeah, I mean, if you really get to hear about Vrindavan, you'll see that, it's all about love and service. And so, that can't be faked, that you're going to gate crash a place where it's all about loving this one individual. Without that, they're going to be violent. And as we get closer to it, we see it's not the ultimate party as we know parties are. So a lot of people will make a U-turn when they actually hear about the Vrindavan lifestyle. Remember in Krishna book, we're discussing cows, cow dung patties, garlands. It sounds villagey and just so
a lot of work.
Maybe the metaverse may appeal to people more than going to where Krishna is. So, and Krishna has made it like that until there's love blossoming in the heart, one cannot actually perceive the party that he's offering. The amazing thing that is actually there, that is much better than. But just one last thing, when you consider Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Radharani and Krishna, then you can see that, what we really love in the form of kirtan. Can you imagine that in a spiritual body? Can you imagine what prasadam is in a spiritual body? Right? So he makes better sense for like good time.
Amazing.
Makes sense.
Probably the other thing is not that, it's just being hyped up, You get this, you get that. It is what it is, It is what it is. Like how you started off talking about the truth is the truth. It is what it is. You do get it.
And minus, imagine minus, we're already getting from material nature. Old age, disease, death, lying, cheating, backstabbing, betrayal, whatever. Even just to subtract a few of those things is already a win, right? So it's generally one way to attract someone to God is to help them see that we're just going to, the more you are one with the Lord, then the less you are one with the external energy that is just punching us. But in fact, when you come through, you find that no, there's also some troubles on the path back to Godhead. It's not just easy going. So that is designed so that it will sift out those who just want to get a different kind of sense gratification. That's why it would be a challenge. So if you thought it's just going to be like sneak peek, I'm going to have a good time, many people do that. They come in, they may like the band and they may like whatever. After some time, then you're confronted with what's within you. And to get over those speed bumps of our internal blocks, then there's some work, there's some pain. But that pain gives way to a greater satisfaction and access to Krishna. So you could say it's our duty, our job to advertise the things that people may be looking for, knowing well that even though they come running for those things, they are getting more out of it. They're getting a chance to come to purify and elevate. Typical example is Bhakti Yoga Society. It's like people don't hear what Bhakti, what they hear yoga, and they have a picture of maybe some yoga lifestyle, and they come. And then they start to hear and they get prasadam. Hey, Julie, really would like to appreciate you,
Appreciate it. Thanks for joining. Yeah.
Yeah. I really feel a sense of kinship with you. We haven't met in person, but just exchanging, words of encouragement and appreciation has been really, I think, we have to get in touch with us on that WhatsApp number. I think a copy of Civilization and Transcendence is due to you.
Yeah, bro.
Let's see. As a comment. Yeah.
Yes. People
we've really been appreciating you coming along and giving some words. Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah, so that WhatsApp number is there. Just hit me up and I'll find a way to send to you a copy. Okay, we're almost at 108. I think it's coming to an auspicious time.
108.
So
we an hour 7 minutes. So we'll take some words as we end the year and maybe looking at the coming year. I've really enjoyed being in your company at Wisdom Readings, and tomorrow we'll do Krishna book, and from that session we'll find out another juicy book that we'll tackle for Wisdom Readings. Thank you. That's me.
For me, just to thank you, Usa, for this wisdom reading platform. It's been like a game changer. It has gotten us to be more involved and more present in exchanging knowledge and receiving knowledge, about the Supreme. And may good Krishna bless you, on the way going forward. And, may we have more initiatives like this that will actually get, other people as well, involved, and asking the right questions so that the circle can get much, much bigger than what it is right now. I think the more we associate with each other and talk more about Krishna, the better it is for all of us, for our lips, for our tongues. It's tapasya. So I think quite a lot of takeaways with regards to that aspect of life and sharing on this Civilization and Transcendence book that we've just read. Yeah, definitely a copy to have and a copy to share. Thank you, Babu. Thank you, Mr. Atma for all your efforts, my brother. Nobody actually ever thanks
Hands
you.
aloof.
You know, I
Autopilot.
really
No hands.
say this. I really appreciate your good work, in making sure that this brand shines the way that it's shining right now. It might not be very, very visible at this point in time, but I
Don't
can
worry.
assure you, brother,
With a budget,
it's
we have
like,
to pay the man to be visible. So
it's
what
resonating
we
with
do,
my,
we have to do that.
it's
Yeah.
exciting. Yeah.
I'll say one thing. Like, having been behind the scenes, as it were. This is not
I
easy.
was not done. I was not done.
Hey, this is not easy. You guys just come up on here and bare your souls. Bare your souls. That's something. Particularly in the time of now. That's something.
This is true. I remember a friend of mine stopped coming to the yoga lounge. She's like, I understand nudity, but the nudity that happens at the yoga lounge is too much. Like, I'm sharing too much of myself. Like, they see me. Like, it's true. Because, like, there's nudity there, like body nudity, but there's like that like, the intimacy of like getting to know people on a spiritual level is too deep, is too much, and some people can't handle it. So I understand that comment, because I've had a friend who just was like, I'm not coming back, it's too much. So, yeah.
Too much. Just covers the soul. It really takes out the soul and puts it right out there. And the soul is really honest, and when once you start relating via the soul with people like Musabe Sachi, Atmatatva, the soul takes over, and the soul and the honesty just stands out more than anything, and you end up
Yeah, we're fighting for
talking
our
about
true selves here.
talking about
That's called being real. We're trying to
being
be
real.
real.
Exactly.
We're really trying to be real.
Real.
We're trying to be real. I remember one oh Krishna, it's too many things. But one girl came to the lounge, and an activist type person. What was her name? Maboni. I forget her name. And then she said, I really like coming here. But then when I come here, I lose my anger. And I come down, and it's like,
Malebu.
but my leg. But I need this anger.
That's the friend I'm talking about.
Because now, when I go out there now,
It's my grit.
but Krishna is making me like understand the other people and come down, and it's just like, ish, no.
These people gotta pay.
I wonder where she is. I hope she's doing well.
She's in Cape Town. She's doing well. Yeah. For me, I think I share the same sentiments as everyone. I'm really grateful for this space. I remember I was like very hesitant in the beginning, especially when I was thinking about the time. I was like, 15 minutes max. Like, yo, who's gonna talk for 30 minutes? And now we're pushing hours. So yeah, it's amazing. It's been a very nice space. I know there's certain books I probably wouldn't have picked up, and this is one of them, The Civilization and Transcendence. Is not a book that I would typically go for. And having read it, I'm like, ooh, I should actually just like read outside my sphere of interest and the kind of things I like, because there's so much that one can find in these books. And I urge anyone who's watching and everyone who's watching to do the same. To just pick up the book and read them. They're so nice, They're just like really nice books. And there's a lot of wisdom, and a lot that we can take home, and a lot that makes us understand, and even that losing of that anger that happens when you read the book, so you get to understand other people on the other side and your side as well. So yeah, that's That's my 2 cents.
Thank you.
Becomes difficult to go, but
Very nice.
Atma Prabhu, something almost came out, but you're muted. Just like final words.
Nothing. I think we should run a poll, though.
You want to stay behind the scenes?
Yeah, definitely. We should run a poll, though, like which is the next book?
Yes.
But now we have to see also amongst those who will come forward to read, I guess, or we also check with anyone who's listening. We'll find a way to find a book, but definitely we would begin on Monday with the new book.
Yes.
To be
and the whole feature idea, I enjoyed Balakrishna's reading.
Yes.
Oh,
yeah, it was amazing.
And it was like different, and it was like, wow, with the soul, man.
Yeah,
like coming out of a cage, like you want to share. You really want to share.
It was like, wow, man. It was so refreshing, actually.
Yeah, it was always a treat to have Bala come up.
Definitely, with Bala, like anything.
Always a treat.
Yeah. It was amazing. It was refreshing,
and I think I'll also we'll find a slot, I think, also just for guest readers. I think that would be good, so that we can get more voices, because that's the whole point. And definitely, if you're watching, don't feel like the platform is just us who've been reading, because every time, and I enjoyed Nomsa's invitations. Even I'm there, I'm thinking, yes, I'll be there, I'll come, I'll join, I'll read. It's like, so, you've never been invited like this in your life. It's always really come through. It's just, and it's that's it. It's please come through. We are inviting you, take part. Come and say something. Let's all take a swim and enjoy what has been provided to us by Srila Prabhupada. We shouldn't stay away. The more the merrier, the more we interact. So we'll see you also tomorrow. The invitation. Nom said, please invite us for the book club tomorrow.
Yes, guys, book club tomorrow. Like, where are you? Why don't you come? What's happening? There's nothing that's going on in your lives right now. It's like the last 6 days. Guys, don't do this. This guy gets a writing. Just come through, man. It's so nice. I'm personally inviting you. Yeah, it's from me to you. Come through to the book club tomorrow, from 7 till you'll see. But come through tomorrow.
Please do come through. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai.
You're muted, Atma.